Okay, welcome back. We're on page 576 talking about JavaScript coding. And so a couple things I want you to look at. One is that there's a beginning script tag and an ending script tag. That kind of makes sense. The commands. And so the commands are case sensitive, which means a little A-L-E-R-T will work, but a capital A will not. So it is case sensitive, and it's got to be very, very precisely done. Although it's kind of sort of optional if there's only one line, it's good measure to always put a semicolon at the end. Okay, this is called a parameter to the alert method. I know. Just bear with me. We'll get to it. I promise. Okay, so again. In theory, it should stop the rendering of the page. It should, do the paragraph one thing and then stop, and then show you this. In this particular case, it's an alert command. It could be some other command in here, which we'll get to. But for right now, this is good enough. Okay, so those are the required parts to make scripting work. Got it? Good. On page 578, they talk about the document object model, the DOM. And this is about how do I make it easy for programmers to figure out how to talk to the HTML document, to talk to the browser, to talk to the history, all those things. And so this is getting a little deep, but this is what it looks like. And so the window is the current window of the browser, and then I have the current document, then I have the location, then I have the navigator, and all these kinds of things. And so inside the document, I could have an anchor tag and a form and an image and blah, 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 blah. You've seen all this. Okay, this is called the document object model. And so I could go in here, like, for example, and I want to talk to the document. And so instead of having an alert here, I'm going to go in here and say document.write. And then I'm going to write something, which is going to be hello. Okay. Now, again, this is pretty good because when I started typing, the IntelliSense helped me out here. So I'm just going to run this and see what it looks like. And not too surprising, it looks kind of sort of normal. And in fact, if you were looking at this, you might say to yourself, well, why on earth would you ever do that? Why don't you just type the word hello in there? Well, okay, this is a stupid example. But the point is, I can ask the document and write some stuff. So let this sink in a little bit. I can write JavaScript to output stuff in the browser to include things like tags, right? I can go in here and say I want this to be an H2 tag. What do you think that'll do? Is it going to spit out H2 or is it going to make that an H2? Yeah, so I can send out HTML with my document write. Using the document object model, I can say, I want to go back, I want to go forward, like in history, I want to talk to the document, things like that. It's actually kind of doggone cool. Now, I do need to dip your toe just a tiny bit into the programming pool, okay, just a tiny bit, and learn some words, okay, just some words. All right. So object-oriented programming, that's a thing. It's all about how to take a programming problem and break it up into smaller chunks to make it easy to deal with. That's what object-oriented programming is all about. So there's a thing called an object, and an object is this stuff, the document dot. Because whenever you have an object, you can hit dot, and it'll give you an awful lot of options. Okay, then there's things called properties. And so if I went here again, let me do that again. I'm going to do document dot. Okay. So this is a property, like active element, whatever the currently active element is. So these are, if this was, it's easier to describe in an abstract term. So just give me a minute. Let's say I have an employee object. The employee object has properties like what's the employee's first name, what's their last name, how much do they get paid, what department do they work for. Those are properties of the employee. And then they have actions. So actions are called methods. So a method might be employee dot, hire or fire or transfer or promote, or whatever the actions that would be most applicable to an employee. So properties and methods. Properties are nouns, things that, attributes of the thing, and then methods are actions you could take, like write, obviously, is an action. Cool. And there's another thing called events, but we're not going to get to that much. Events basically are saying, I'm going to write JavaScript, and it's going to respond to external stimuli, typically the user clicking on something or moving the mouse around. That's typically how that works. Okay, this dot notation I was explaining, when separates the object from whatever else there is, like the object has a property or has a method or has an event. Cool. All right. On page 581, they talk a little bit more about events. We're not going to do one, but we're going to talk about it. So typically actions performed by the poor human, okay? This is not the web page. It's not the web server. It's not the browser. This is something that the human is most likely going to be doing. It's like you clicked on something, and it would respond based upon that. The mouse pointer is hovering over something, so it would respond on that. The mouse is moved, the key is pressed. Okay, so let me give you an example here of one of those. So let me do. I accidentally whacked my script tag here. Okay, whoops, helps you spell it right. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go in here and do, I don't know, we'll do I'm going to do an href. By the way, href pound is a cheat way of just saying go to the current page that you're on. I know it's kind of dumb, but it's just an example. So I could say, if I said on, these are the cool things that you can do with JavaScript events. So on, abort, blur, cancel, blah, 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 blah. How about one that says mouse over? So on mouse over. And when the mouse is hovering over this link, what would you like it to do? Well, I'm going to do something stupid. I'll probably just do an alert like we did before. So I'm going to say alert. Alert. Now this is going to be a little weird. You see how I started this guy with a double quote? Because he's now, instead of being inside a script tag, he's actually inside an on mouse property, right? So I'm going to switch to using single quotes here. I know. And I could actually stay with doing with double quotes, but it's just a royal pain to be able to have to go in there. So the machine basically knows single quotes and double quotes are the same thing. So it's okay with that. All right, so now I'm going to say hover over me. Okay, so this is going to set up an event listener. So whenever the mouse hovers over this text, it should do something. Let's see what it does. Okay, all right, here we go. And I get the alert. Cool? All right. So that's just a very simple example of how event handling works. Okay? I could create, and you saw the list. When I went to on, there was a bunch of those guys. I mean, tons and tons of these events that you can do. And if you want to mess with them, please do. It's kind of cool. Okay. So, variables. On page 584, they finally start talking about, well, I want to write some code. Well, okay, this requires a little bit of programming. So again, I'm going to talk around it a little bit and just tell you what these things mean. So a variable basically is a named chunk of memory. Now, it sounds kind of crazy, but just bear with me. I have a bunch of memory that I have available, and I want to store stuff in the memory. And so I just name a spot. I say, hey, you over here, this little chunk of memory that's about this big, I'm going to call it Bob. And then whenever I want to talk something, I just say, hey, put that in Bob or take that out of Bob. That's it. That's all what a variable is. It's not complicated, really. So variables have names, okay, and the name should actually mean something. There's an entire naming convention when you create variables. For example, you shouldn't have a variable, called I or X, because anyone else coming behind you would go, well, what the heck does that mean? This would be a good name if I said var first name. Okay? Woohoo! Now that, you could probably tell what's going on if I said first, dang, first name equals Bob. Okay, we're cooking. All right. By the way, you can combine these all on one line. You could say var last name is equal to Smith, like that. Anyway, these are variables, and so I can use those variables when I do like writes. Okay. If you want to add a couple things together, for example, if I want to have like var full name would be equal to first name plus, and plus here does not mean addition. It means stick these two variables together. Whoops. Okay, so basically that means take the Bob space Smith becomes the full name. Okay, so in essence, that's how that works. There's a way that you can actually have the machine prompt you for something. For example, instead of having it this way, let's go in here and say, I want to do a script, and I want to say var my name is equal to prompt. Enter your name. All right, let's see what that does. Because you got to be able to get stuff from the people, right? Yikes, I didn't mean to do that, but that'll work. So it basically comes up and says, enter your name, and you would type in Bob and hit OK, and then it would render the rest of the page. Kind of cool? Okay. So that's kind of some of the programming stuff that you can do. A few more programming concepts. I promise I'll try not to really drive you nuts here. Let's say var, I don't know, some number. Some number is equal to 8 times 2 plus 4. Does that mean it's 8 times 2 plus 4 or 8 times 2 plus 4? Well, there's an order. And back when I was in school 10 million years ago, we learned, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, which was parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. PEMDAS. That's not very pronounceable. So, in this particular case, that would mean this would be 16 plus 4 is 20. Cool. All right. On page 589, they talk about doing comparisons. I want to know, for example, if some number that you've got some other number. So, I don't know, var some other number, whatever it is. Then you can say if some number is greater than other number, then do some stuff. Helps if you spell it right. Anyway, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.